Alrighty, welcome to Bodied Cloud9 Fact Cast. This week, havokpus is at work. His work schedule is kind of off, so you are stuck with me hosting the podcast for the next 2 weeks. Along with me today, I have Dr. Manhatten.
How's it going, everyone?
How was your week?
Not too bad, man. I mean, the fact that we finally got away from that winter breeze, and it's actually looking kind of nice here down in DC. But no, yeah, it's been a good week, and I'm excited once again to do another recording of Cloud9.
Yeah, once the polar vortex kind of left, it did get a little bit better. It actually got up to like 50 something degrees. So if you count the wind chill, we almost had 100 degree Fahrenheit swing between the lowest of the polar vortex to like that 50 degrees on Saturday, which to me is absolutely bizarre because it's still winter at this point. But we did have an ice storm today, so that dampened it. But that's not why we're here. Despite all this, the planes were still flying, I think, so that means we can too. So diving right into it, after the first week of NPL, the C9 PUBG hit the standings in third place. How do you feel about that? I wasn't able to watch any of this, unfortunately.
Same. I didn't watch terribly much of it, but I mean, the fact that Bluehole really wants to really hit the ground running with their PUBG League is actually very impressive. Giving us a whole national league here in NA, basically where it basically our Cloud9 team is playing at right now. But the fact that they're already hitting the ground running as one of the better teams is actually very optimistic for them, especially because you have some pretty decent competition here from what I'm reading. I mean, I think Tempo was also part of the roster that went to the Invitational last year. Ghost also, I believe, even went to the Invitational, even won a chicken dinner at one point. Not to mention they have one of our old boys on their Frolicker. But Nerf, like from what I read, like Nerf is actually like killing it there. So the fact that they're starting to hit the ground running, definitely gives me more hope that again Cloud9 will definitely show that they're another esport where they can actually be, you know, contentious in. That's the word.
Yeah, I have noticed that they haven't quite been stepping up into that first tier of PUBG teams, and starting out in third place is a pretty good start for them. So moving on up, and hopefully it's a sign of better things to come. Moving on for CSGO, the HLTV team rankings were released, and C9 is now ranked 7th. I think that's pretty good considering everything that's been going on with the roster, but I think that they've been performing decently well as of late.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that that kind of boost is going to be really good for PUBG going forward. I mean, not PUBG, CS:GO going forward. One, I think the biggest thing is that we finally are stopped playing musical chairs with the roster as a whole. Because again, I think for now we're finally settled going to this major with Automatic, Rush, Keo, Flusha, and Zelsis, which is good. Because again, the entire time we've been playing musical chairs with Golden and Stiko, and Golden got kind of sick for a bit, and he's not recommended to travel a lot. Which guess what? We're going to Katowice in probably a few weeks, which in a week from the day we're recording this, the Katowice, at least the challenger stage, at least the minor challenger stage should start. And and it's good to be in top 10 again, just because of the fact that I think that there are some teams that are definitely going to be in contention there. Again, you have Astralis, currently the best team right now. But I think that we're definitely closing the gap with some of the other NA teams that are really good right now. Like Team Liquid is without a doubt the best NA team. We're within arm's reach, I would say, of NRG, and even some of the other teams. Like, I mean, Fnatic, we're in arm's reach of. G2 is decent. And it's been a while since we've been in top 10 again, or like even close to top 5. But this is the kind of morality boost and just overall the fact that they're showing better results. It's the kind of victory we need going into towards the major, which major season is pretty much here.
Yeah, and like you said, the Katowice tournament is coming up. We do have our matchup for that. We are going off against Greyhound. So that should be an interesting matchup, but it should be something that we should definitely be able to come out on top on. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing us stay past the first couple days. So because last year was a lot of hype, and I'm really excited for the major season to start, just because it brought us so many good memories around this time last year. So moving on to Smash, Mango plays 5th in the Genesis 6 Smash tournament. I wasn't able to watch this. Weekends are a bad time for me. So were you able to catch any of it?
Yeah, I caught a lot of it. It was really cool to see that. The reason why for those of you guys who aren't really into Smash, just letting you know, the reason why Genesis was kind of a big deal is because this is like the first like super major for. It kind of sets the momentum a lot for the year for Super Smash Bros. As a whole. Not to mention this is the first super major that Ultimate was a part of, which actually we actually saw a surprising amount of melee players show up at that one. Actually, I think Mango played. He didn't make great results, but he definitely I remember him competing in that and feeling it a big deal. But also you had names like Leffen and Mewtwo King showing up at this tournament for Ultimate, which is it's good to see that there's kind of a game that can potentially unite both melee and pretty much the post Brawl era of Brawl and Project M and 4, because a lot of melee players didn't really like those games. But it's good to see that. I did see some of the tournament. Fortunately, it sucks that the Mango streak is still the drought is still active right now. I was hoping that he could take this one, just because again it would be great for him to win this one. He was the only god to my knowledge last year that didn't even win anything. Like Mewtwo won something, HBox was like on a tear all year. Armada, even before he retired from singles, he won a tournament. And he was like the only god still active. Even Leffen won Evo, and Plub won G5. So pretty much the only person who didn't win anything was Mango, and it just sucks to see him kind of in this stuck drought. Because I mean, he's definitely somebody who won't go out like that. Like that's just the way Mango works. Is just he doesn't go out. If he has to go out, he either goes out on top or on his own terms, and it's just see him getting 3-0'd by Amsa, who no disrespect to Amsa is a great competitor by all means. Again, the streak has like of almost or just the streak of winless tournaments from Mango or just top eights, and then that's it. Just it sucks for him right now. It's not an easy spot for him to be in, especially because I think he tried really hard. I think at one point while everyone was practicing Ultimate from the melee crowd, like I think Leffen was really focusing on Ultimate. Leffen even dropped out of singles for melee. Armada was practicing a lot of Ultimate. I think he really wanted to try for this one for G6, but unfortunately couldn't bring the W against Amsa.
Yeah, it's been super exciting to see a lot of the Smash players kind of embrace Ultimate. I know I've watched a couple of the big names stream it. I know Mango's been streaming it a decent amount. Did he play Wario in that tournament?
Yeah, I believe he did play some Wario. 'Cause that's pretty much the one character. If you ever watch the stream, like that's the only character he's been focusing on. But Wario didn't really have the greatest representation. I think, to my knowledge, only good Wario in the Ultimate scene right now is TSM's new Smash player Tweak, who's like probably like by far the best Wario right now. But a lot of what people expect to see. We saw a lot of Wolves, a lot of Swordsmen, some Peaches, and some Inklings. But I mean, on the bright side for C9, I think the best thing is that there's a lot of free agents on the market after Smash 4. A lot of their guys didn't renew their contracts, so it'd be cool to see if C9 could actually go on the Ultimate hype or have somebody with Mango just practicing some Ultimate, because that would be a lot of fun like knowing how hot the iron is for Smash Ultimate competitively.
Oh yeah. I find it extremely kind of ridiculous that the swordsman is kind of like this OP character right now, just because it's kind of like generic. It's not like a
Yeah,
specific
yeah,
character.
it's just like yeah,
It's
like
just
all the swordsmen in the game are like pretty OP. I mean, we saw a good representation of stuff like Lucina, Ike. We saw a few. I think even in the middle of the brackets, we saw a few people playing stuff like Link. We see Marths playing around, some Chroms, some Roys, but it's like just these generic swordsmen coming out of nowhere. It's just really crazy. I mean, MKLeo took the whole thing with Ike, so like I think right now it's kind of like in a swordsman meta.
Awesome. I teased a little bit about flying earlier, and I'm gonna tease a little bit more. Overwatch League starts next week, next Thursday. The Spitfire play, so we will gather around a little bit early next week, so we can get some content out before Overwatch League starts, because the Spitfire are gonna be pretty legit again. Moving on to, I guess, League of Legends. The Academy team went 1-1. They lost against TSM Academy, but beat Clutch. Um, I really feel like Kumo is really turning into a legitimate top laner at this point. And even if there weren't two like borderline LCS players on the roster, I think that this, or sorry, three borderline LCS players on the roster, I think this team would still be good just because of how good Kumo is.
Yeah, this kid has been smurfing for quite a long time already. I mean, he's kind of like, I honestly think he's like Viper in a sense where he's graduated from what he originally was known for, and that's just, I mean, everyone who followed like Shikumo back in the day, like I think like even like 2 years ago, he was part of what I call like the cult of ribbons in NA solo queue, where like he would like people like kind of fused him with like Adrian, Viper, Revenge, and all these like who's of like ribbon players. But like no, the fact that he goes from like just being a one trick to really showing that he can hang like with some legitimate top laners, and actually he's like looks like he could actually be like the next academy, like the next big academy player, which I think I think right now that's the big question of who's going to be the next academy player, who's going to be the next like Blabber or the next Licorice, or like even we see it with Viper right now doing impressive right now. So I think everyone right now is curious to see who's going to be like the next guy, and Kumo is definitely making a big name for himself right now, and I'm excited to see if he can go on to the main roster, whether it's C9 or even somewhere else. Like this kid is just smurfing out of his mind.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that we have Licorice. Excuse me. It kind of sucks that we have Licorice in that position already, just because he really looks like he could be a legitimate top laner in LCS, even in a world of imports and such. So I'm really excited to see how it plays out. We also have Diamond, who was kind of brought into the bot lane as part of a little bit of a roster shake up. How do you think he's been doing?
He's been doing fair. I think that obviously he does need more time because again he's not to my knowledge he doesn't really have terribly much experience really competing at high levels. Like actually, I'm looking at the only thing he had is I think he was a sub support on Chris Academy like years ago, which I mean almost doesn't even count. But like, um, he does. I mean, he does show promise. He has one a good support to learn from, which is Azel, and that's usually a good thing for any player really. Not only that, it's just he has a good team around him. And while I would say he has potential, again, I think he definitely needs a bit more time to really like at least make a good case for himself that he is like another one of the best supports. Because another person I've been looking at a lot in the competitiveness is actually the support for FlyQuest Academy Duo King, whom some people might have remembered him as Consensual Clown. Like this guy was a super hyped up player going into Academy, but I'm be interested to see how they do, or how he really differentiates himself against maybe a potential rookie like Duo King, or even some better known supports that have been in the scene like Stunt, Papa Chow, Matt. These are guys who were former LCS, and it'll be really good to see him kind of prove that he's one of the better academy supports.
Yeah, I think if he would have started maybe a year or two earlier, he might have a shout to be pushing into LCS over people like Matt, who spent a decent amount of time there. But unfortunately, he came in a little late, because now the support lineup down at the league is actually pretty decent. There are some players aging a little bit, namely Afromu, but it's going to be hard to fit into a roster at this point on support, and especially if teams aren't scared to import there. Like we saw some Mithy last year, who's now gone. Court JJ is now here. So if teams aren't scared to bring in an import support, then it's gonna be tough for him. But I think that based on what we've seen, he's done pretty well. Like he's obviously not like Zazel was last year when he was in academy. Um, but I feel like it's prom is saying he's in a good team to learn from. He has 4 players who outshine him in pretty much every way, and he gets to learn how to keep Keith alive, which many supports have tried and failed doing. So I do think he is quite a bit away from the LCS stage, but he is an interesting project, and I want to say he came up in the what's it called, the rookie spotlight thingy where they end up drafting the players out
Scouting
after
grounds.
scouting grounds. Yeah,
Yeah, he was
I
really
feel like he came out of
talked
that.
about a lot there.
Yeah, he came out of there I think last year, so he does have a long way to go, but I don't think we have too much to say about the rest of the players because they are recognizable and we have seen them on the LCS stage plenty of times. Were you able to watch either of the matches against TSM or Clutch Academy?
I did not. I did not, unfortunately.
I was able to watch. I'm pretty sure I watched Clutch, and I watched most of the TSM game, and it was kind of disappointing to see them kind of be outclassed due to the fact that we do have like 3 borderline LCS players on the roster. But while I was thinking about it, while I was watching the Clutch Gaming Academy game after the fact, I kind of remembered that the Academy League isn't about winning and losing. It's more about developing the talent and pushing these players to their limits so they can try and learn the professional game. And that kind of helped me kind of rethink about it because at the end of the day, winning Academy Worlds doesn't really mean anything because the goal is to get onto an LCS our rosters. So I'm hoping to see the team try new things out and develop on the stage and through the rest of the split.
Yeah, definitely excited. And again, we're just barely starting to really get into this season.
Yeah, I didn't actually look to see who they're playing this week.
Here, I think
I can
pull it
maybe
up.
beat you to it.
Okay.
Cloud9 plays Echo Fox Academy on Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Optic Gaming at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, which is ridiculous to me. I don't
Yeah,
know why
that's pretty
they're going
crazy.
that late. But it is Friday, so I guess I don't care as much.
Yeah.
For the LCS roster, we pulled out. I think it would be fair to say it's kind of a disappointing week. We kind of beat the crap out of it was Clutch, right? Or Golden Guardians in the first game.
Yeah, it wasn't even a contest.
Who picked win early game comp and proceeded to do absolutely nothing. And then we played an experimental composition into CLG, and it didn't quite turn out as we would have liked. So, reflecting on the Golden Guardians game, what did you take from it?
The Golden Guardians game? I think that was just I think it was just business as usual. Like, I mean, Golden Guardians right now we're just going through an insane identity crisis right now. It's just you have so much talent on this roster, which is why I'm confused as to why they're yet the only winless team in the LCS still. But I mean, the thing about them is it's just the only word I have is just an identity crisis. Because I mean, there was an old quote that there's a quote that Reginald had when he was talking about his philosophy of a team, and where he says 5 people doing one thing wrong is much better than 5 people doing 5 different things right. And like Golden Guardians seems to be all over the place with their comms, with their calls, with their communication as a whole, looking at the outside looking in. And that's one of the biggest things that I see plaguing this team. I mean, you have three former NA LCS champions, or three, no, two. You have two former LCS champions, one EU LCS champion, one NA finalist, and then you have Defly, and not to mention Nero, who took Echo Fox to top four last year, and it's just they're looking super chaotic. But I mean, speaking as a Cloud9 fan, I'll take the chaotic because I mean Cloud9's made it look like business as usual, and I saw them convincingly taking this team. Like Niski just looked very lost, or not Niski, Froggen looked very lost, and Niski took very much advantage of that. And I think that the only word I have for that, I repeat myself all the time, but I think that was just business as usual, as it should be for Cloud9.
Yeah, I think Froggen said in an interview that they were kind of having an identity crisis also. Like I said, against us, they kind of picked an early game comp and then just proceeded to do nothing with it. So that was kind of a bit bizarre. They kind of just let us run circles around them. But I'm looking at the stats right now from Oracle Elixir, and it doesn't seem like they're statistically like completely awful. I obviously they're not very good, and they're not going to end up very good. But they have the second to last goal difference at 15. They have the third highest or the second highest first blood percentage, but what they seem to be really lacking in is ending the laning phase and playing through the mid game. And I think with some practice that might be something that they can get through, because a lot of this roster was brought in new. So, and if they can get Froggen onto the same page as everyone else, kind of, then I do think this is a sleeper team. I don't think they're probably going to make playoffs by any means, but I do feel like they're going to be maybe decent to being a bad team, but borderline like frisky. Do you have anything else to add about the Golden Guardians game?
I mean, also one of the things that they did wrong. This is the last thing I'll say is is give they gave Niski one of his best comfort picks that he was known for in a lot in EU, which is the Zoe. And this guy, it was like completely night and day from what we saw from him from week one on Team Liquid versus what we saw him today. Where if you give him the room to actually do work on the Zoe, it's phenomenal what it'll do. So I'll definitely give Niski his props there.
Yeah, he's a monster on it. He ended up getting a ban against CLG. I've said they didn't want to deal with that bullshit champion. Actually, I normally don't see her much in solo queues, so I played against her the other day, and she didn't feel that broken in anymore. So maybe she's not quite a bullshit champion anymore. But while we're on it, I guess let's go on to CLG. I guess we should start with the composition, because this is, I feel like, where most of our conversation is and should be. We had Victor in the top lane, Lee Sin in the jungle, Aatrox mid, Sneaky was on Kai'Sa, and Zeyzal was on Braum. So to me, if I could change one thing about this, I would either have put the Victor mid, or I would have just drafted a different mid laner and put the Aatrox top. Just because I feel like the Aatrox would have done a better job getting priority onto the Scion, which would have allowed Elixir to play something a little bit more comfortable and allow us to control that top side of the map.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the biggest issues with that game. Period, is the fact that if you look at the mid lane pool that was banned, you had, even if you include flex picks, there was only one ban this game that was not centered around mid, and that was Lucian. Everything else was either it was a mid ban or it could have been flex mid. Looking at right now, Lissandra, Akali, Orianna, Syndra, Cassiopeia, Zoe, Urgot, Vladimir, and LeBlanc. The mid lane pool was heavily pinched this entire game, and for good reason. I think that a lot of the most annoying champions in the mid game or mid lane right now are centered around mid lane. Even Power of Evil, I was listening to his thoughts on Hotline League, and essentially he said that he thought that it was a very mid centric game. going on right now. So yeah, it makes sense that they pinch it, but I don't think that they should have put the Aatrox mid. I think that either one, put the Aatrox mid, or if you're gonna do that, just either one draft a more comfortable pick for Licorice to kind of concede, because I don't think getting the Victor into the Scion was a really good pick, especially as the uh, game later goes on. Two, I think that they should have done a better job at pinching the support pool a bit, because Tom Kent is a really good pick right now. And that letting with the Ezreal pick, I mean, you're never gonna dive him with his fence. Even if you put Spence Garen on his comfortable Lee Sin pick, like who's gonna dive with him? Because Aatrox isn't the greatest diver. Like he's not really known for that. Sneaky, I mean, you put him on that, but now he's exposed for the tank line, and it was just the exact opposite of what CLG did, where CLG legitimately had a full tank line ready to just they had a full tank line of Scion and Tom Kench ready to just let Stixay poke with the Ezreal. That's why he did absurd amounts of damage. Even if like Wiggly went in and died on that Camille pick, which that's a heavy diver that can easily mitigate the Kaisa that Sneaky was on. You have Power of Evil, who was playing Zillion and resurrected, and it seemed like they wanted everyone to carry, but that's kind of contradictory, because it's like if everyone carries, then not everyone can carry, and someone kind of has to play more of a supportive role. And unfortunately, it seemed like C9 didn't want to concede either. And not to mention, once you got that Elder on top of like what they got they got 6 Drakes, I believe. Yeah, they got 6 Drakes, and I think they got an Elder with a Baron. At that point, you basically just you just auto win with your CLG.
Yeah, it seemed like they almost wanted to go into a dive comp, but then they pick the Victor in the top lane, which completely just mid negates everything. It would have been maybe better to see them on Alistar this game, and maybe pick like a Vladimir and put him top lane, or put the Aatrox top lane or something. But I think outside of that big fight at Red Buff, I think we did a pretty decent job throughout the game, all things considered. I guess we can transition to the Red Buff fight, then talk about the rest of the game. I know Havoc and I had kind of a little argument in our Discord channel about that Red Buff fight. So,
I mean, that Red Buff fight, the thing about it is, I mean, it just seemed like they weren't respecting a lot of what that comp could do. Because I mean, once you saw the Zillion going up, I mean, there's no way. Even if you have a 2v1, which is not the case because it's a red side red buff, so it's easy for Power of Evil on the Zillion to just go into the red side jungle, or for a Scion to go in. Not to mention you mentioned it at one point, but Biofrost was running the Unsealed Spellbook, which he immediately changed to TP, which easily allowed him to just make that a 2v1, now a 3v2 in favor of CLG. Like, it was easy for them to create a choke point, and even if, let's say, Wiggly fucks that dive up or just misplays mechanically, it's easy for him to get a do-over with the Zillion, and the Scion can easily just control the fight so well. It was just and Licorice didn't really have priority, so it was such a super disrespectful fight coming out of C9 on that one.
yeah, I think it was a little disrespectful, but I feel like it was the right kind of play to make at that time. The Aatrox was up a kill onto the Zillion. He was able to get in and drive Camille off the red buff. What I think definitely went wrong, maybe Svenskeren shouldn't have stolen the blue buff right before the fight, but I think that allowed them to push the Zillion under turret even more. What definitely hurt was Licorice used the Victor ultimate to try and push the Scion under turret, but Scion is OP as fuck right now, so he was able to just push back out and not take any damage. And then once the fight was starting to happen, he did get that priority, and then at that point, Svenskeren was at the red buff. But I think if they would have moved a little bit sooner, that it would have been a better fight. But I don't know. I still don't think it was the wrong play. I think that they just executed it poorly, and to me, that's more exciting to watch than us kind of just do nothing for 40 minutes and lose, which even when we quote unquote fell behind, like we still were trying to get back into that game. After the first Baron, like we were after like the whole Baron buff was worn off, I think we were only like a 4 or 5k behind at that point. What really killed us was the fact that CLG could push up and keep the vision control up, so we weren't able to cheese them in it anymore. But I do think that we, all things considered, played a relatively decent game considered the circumstances, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. Given that, I think that the fact they were able to stall it out, it's definitely a good thing. It just, I think, but obviously, definitely more needs to be done.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a world where we bring in either Blabber or Golden Glue or Keith or something up to LCS for a weekend?
Wouldn't be completely out of the question, considering, I mean, we all know that Reaper's not afraid to use the 7-man roster. So I mean, maybe if there's an issue where Svenskeren is just not playing up to par, or they want Niski to play more of a supportive role around Blabber, and maybe just have them just kind of him play less of a role, or I don't know. Also, it depends on how the bot lane meta goes in terms of whether they want to put Sneaky. Because I think the next patch is when the bot lane patch goes live, so maybe they want to have Sneaky step up a bit more and Zazel step up more. It's kind of up in the air, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we see Blabber and Niski kind of play together, because I mean, we know that Reaper's not afraid of doing stuff like that.
Yeah, it would be kind of weird considering the first match coming up next week. But before we jump into that, we do have a little bit of time, I guess we could use. After watching the 2 weeks so far, if you could put the teams into tiers, how do you think you would go about doing that? I know I'm throwing you on the spot there, but I feel like the obvious tier 1 team or S tier would just be Team Liquid exclusively.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that right now. I think that it's Team Liquid right now, and for B tier, it's pretty much up in the air. Like, I think TSM could definitely make an argument for themselves being on like around A tier. That would be under S tier. FlyQuest is looking decent. They're in a solid second place, but my only question is, how are they built for the long term, and what is the overall cap that I can see this team really have? I definitely think we're also up there, and Clutch went from 2-0 to 2-2. So again, the question is how streaky this team is for the most part. I think that that's what a lot of people are asking themselves. CLG is looking kind of on the same side of Clutch, but to a lesser degree, where they're kind of streaky. But like the only teams I have a lot of confidence saying is like are on the same tier right now would be like Cloud9. After S tier, like Cloud9, TSM, Clutch, and like FlyQuest, and then under that you'd probably have just 100 Thieves in a world of their own with Echo Fox actually. Then under that would be like Optic, and by a decent margin, I would say is not a decent margin, but marginally enough that I can confidently say that I think Golden Guardians is looking like the team that's struggling the most.
Yeah, I think this week is going to be more revealing of the standings because 100 Thieves has had a really tough go at it. I believe they had TSM, Team Liquid, and Cloud9 in their in 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 3 of their first 4 matches. So the fact that they're sitting at 1 and 3 to me doesn't mean much. I still think that they'll finish in the playoffs. I think if you were to have me draft it around how the teams were right now, it would definitely be Team Liquid. TSM has shown up pretty good. FlyQuest did beat them, which is probably the only actually decent team that FlyQuest has beat. So I can maybe see some kind of tier, maybe if being the second tier vying to kind of get ahead. It'd be like a 1.5 tier as opposed to or sorry, tier 2.5 as opposed to tier 2, just because either FlyQuest, TSM, Cloud9, or or 100 Thieves could move up and down between those 2 tiers just this coming week. CLG is showing a lot better to me. Echo Fox has lost their tough games. I haven't been too impressed with really any of the other teams so far. So yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page with that. So I guess yeah, let's move into our next week's matches.
Yeah, we play. So for this weekend, guys, we play both TSM, our long-standing rivals, and Clutch Gaming, a team that's actually looking, while streaky, definitely looking like they have potential right now. And the main question is, with this patch that we have on 9.2, how do we go forward into approaching these two teams? So this is actually one of the, I don't want to say difficult, but one week where we're definitely going to have to roll up our sleeves a bit more. So how would you personally like approach this week, Frozen?
Yeah, I think this would probably be the second hardest week I could think of outside of our first 100 Thieves and Team Liquid weekend. Um, I think it's going to be difficult. Every game against TSM is always a dogfight, like no matter what. I think we've done a really, really, really good job in our macro play of collecting gold around the map. I I think that's the one thing that we've done extremely well. I'm gonna see if I can find proof for that really quick.
Yeah, my thing is just again, yeah, like TSM is that tends to go for like these really scrappy fights. I mean, these dudes fight like freaking mules, like just always going in just for like looking for every skirmish. But the one upside I do think is that I think that Svenskeren is usually good at reading junglers who are easily as aggressive as he is. I think that's one thing that Akaden excels in. On top of the fact that while Broken Blade did have a good opening week, I think that um, he also had a very questionable week too. Like even though they won against Echo Fox, I think that Echo Fox isn't that good of a team. Like there was a lot of questionable plays coming out of Broken Blade in the top lane, and I think that he was one of the reasons why FlyQuest actually managed to excel in the matchup against TSM. So I think that that's going to be a place where I'm hoping that Licorice can really just kind of show that he's one of, if not definitively, the best top laner in North America. Niski is going to like this is probably after Jensen. Yeah, this was without going to be Niski's most difficult matchup because again, this is one what has historically been one of the best, if not the best player in the in the LCS right now. I mean, this like Bjergsen's a legend in his name, and you say that name. Not to mention, you have Zazel going up against his former mentor in Smoothie, where like Smoothie, even when he was on Cloud9 last spring, said that like he saw a lot of potential in Zazel and was teaching him a lot how to play the game. And it's kind of like a master versus kind of like Padawan kind of thing. On top of Sven and Sneaky, which usually tend to be very, very kind of scrappy fights in themselves, and I'm excited to see how they overall approach this game against them.
Yeah, I feel like the obvious matchup to watch out for is what happens in the top lane, but I have a feeling that TSM is going to put Broken Blade on Scion duty, and then it's going to be up to Cloud9 to try and figure out how they're going to deal with that because they haven't shown a willingness to really mix up their bands all that much. Maybe if Cyan makes it through the first drafting phase, maybe they'll take him out in the second. But I'm more interested to kind of see how the bot lane turns out. Laning wise, Sven isn't anything special. He is near the bottom, near the mid bottom and gold difference, XP difference, and SCS difference at 10. But a sneaky floater around him and all those stats. So I think that's going to be the sneaky matchup to see who can get it in early advantage and push that through to the mid game. I think it's going to be interesting to see who gets Ezreal, I guess, and then see what their response to that is also.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure, for sure.
Do you have anything else to add on TSM before Clutch?
No, I think that we've covered pretty much all the bases that are necessary for TSM or what they would do against TSM or how they want to approach that game.
Yeah, so our second game's against Clutch. I think if there's one team that is not going to pick a Scion to take Licorice out of the game, it is going to be Clutch. And since we're still on 9-2, I would be 0% surprised to see Riv or to see Huni pull something out stupid like Riven. I don't think he's going to. I just think it's in the realm of possibility. Um, I'm really excited for this matchup just because I really like Huni in 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 Lyra as players. So I think that is one of the few teams that might have a better top side of the map than us. So what do you think about this matchup?
Definitely interesting because again, you have a lot of big, flashy kind of players in this one. You have Lyra, somebody who was at one point considered the best jungler in North America. You also have Huni, again, one of the most explosive players in NA history. Definitely not going to be easy for Licorice at all. And usually, whenever you see Huni turn to a 10, like even Licorice himself will like have some struggles with that. Like Huni is one of the best top laners like in NA, like, period. You have Piglet and Vulcan who are kind of finding their tempo a bit, which is good for them. But I mean, that's gonna might spell problems for C9 as a whole. If Zazel and Sneaky can absorb the pressure well, or at the very least, just do well in their lane as a whole, which I expect them to. And then you have, luckily for them also, by the way, kind of a footnote on that is that bot lane still isn't really that impactful in this meta. But I think it's really going to come down to who shows up between the 2v2 between Svenskeren and Niski versus Lyra and Demonte right now, because I think that's what's really going to either push the needle in our favor or gonna help Clutch a bit more. So like yeah, because 2v2 right now in mid lane is super important in this meta.
Yeah, I feel like we have hopefully the advantage there just due to the amount of practice time that they've had, and because I think we can get Niski onto an explosive pick to allow him to utilize a lane advantage in some way. Plus, I'm not a huge fan of Demonte. Piglet's been super sneaky. He's actually been pretty decent so far this split. Um, now that he has some more Koreans on a roster with him, and then a mid laner who's willing to not focus the game completely around himself. So I feel like this is probably the most volatile team in the whole league, just based off the fact that they have Huni and Piglet on it. So it kind of depends what team shows up on Sunday. I feel like we should win this matchup like 70% of the time, but I think that there's always that chance that Clutch Gaming comes out and can just steamroll almost any team on their day, including Team Liquid. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, no, definitely looking forward to this weekend. And again, while again these aren't really like, it's not like last week where again I think we kind of took these wins for granted in a sense, like saying oh it's GGS or oh it's CLG, it should business as usual. I think this is one where it's good for C9 to actually roll up their sleeves a bit and just say, okay, like we really need to work for these wins. Like these aren't, it's not, they're not facing Team Liquid by any means or any stretch, but the reality is these are very, very good teams or formidable teams in the LCS right now that could possibly be as good as they are. So I think it's very good for the team to at least try to see what they look like in a more adverse situation, and definitely start planting more of a solid lead going forward because these are the wins that are going to matter come the end of the regular season or towards the end when it's all about that playoff race.
Yeah, I think if Cloud9 wants to have a shout at winning the split or getting a bye in the playoffs, these are two games that you have to win, like beyond doubt, and especially before the big patch changes start to like fuck up the game a little bit. You need two wins here to keep the momentum going when the game is going to be start evolving a little bit. So I have faith. Obviously I'm gonna say 2-0, but what do you think?
I say I say 2-0. I definitely think that they're gonna learn a bit more from their CLG game and actually make correct all their mistakes. And yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the strengths that these teams have were equally strong in, and it's really gonna come down. And almost all these games are gonna both these games I would say would play out relatively similarly, where it ultimately comes down to the 2v2s.
Yeah, so oh, one last thing. We forgot to mention it last week and we almost forgot to mention it this week. Goodbye to Clash Royale. I actually had a lot of fun watching them. They were one of the few teams I've been able to watch just because they always showed up late at night when I was watching Twitch. So I'm gonna have to find something new to watch at that time.
Yeah, it sucked. Definitely sucks considering like I mean it was one of the very few mobile games that had a lot of potential, and I was so excited to when C9 announced that they were part of that. But you know these teams come and go, and despite the fact that they left and they're sudden leave out of nowhere, you know, good luck to good luck to the former roster, and yeah, hope for the best for them.
Alrighty. I think that's about it. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I'll just close it off with you know hope for the best for our team this weekend. Again, I'm excited to see major season is coming up for CSGO. Excited for that. Excited for the Rainbow Six Invitational coming up. It's sad that Cloud9 was supposed to be there, but fortunately, the team that absorbed most of that roster will still be playing at the R6 Invitational. I forget what their team name is, but yeah, like it's basically everyone except for Goddess. So it's basically just Fox A, Mark to Shark, like Laxing and Retro. And I think they have one other guy. So excited to see the R6 Invitational in about a week. And yeah, February is just going to be a hype month for esports.
Yeah, I wish they figured out how to spread it out throughout the year a little bit more, but um I either way I'll be enjoying um everything I can this weekend before we're back next week to talk the League of Legends results and Overwatch League. So thank you for being on here and see you next week.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.